I read 30 books in 2024. Oh, I don't know how this got here. And while I'm really happy with the number of books I read, this year just hasn't felt like a great reading year. Yes, I have discovered some absolute bangers such as this one, this one, this one, and this one. But looking back, it just feels like a lot of the books I've been reading have just been average. And if I'm being totally honest, it kind of feels like I'm hitting a bad reading slump. Okay, why don't we just do some investigation, shall we? So I think I'll look through every single book I read this year and give it a star rating, and then I can calculate an average star rating for the books I've given this year. 2 stars, 3 stars, 3 stars, 4.5 stars. Okay, if my calculations are correct, then the average star rating I've given a book this year is 3.72, which is not horrendous, but considering I read 30 books, it's not that great. Therefore, I propose a challenge. Okay, the challenge is as follows. I have to read 3 books with the aim of getting my average star rating up. And if I'm able to improve my average star rating, then I can treat myself to a brand new book purchase. But there are real life consequences if the average star rating goes down. If my average star rating decreases, then I have to read books that my wife recommends for a whole week, which most likely means that I will have to read 2-3 books way out of my comfort zone. And it's very unlikely that any of them will be fantasy or sci-fi. But it is a risk I'm willing to take. So without further ado, let's choose a book that I'm expecting to give quite a good star rating. For this challenge, I have to read a total of 3 books, and it's still a bit of a mystery what the 3rd book will be. But the way I'll do this challenge is that I'll read 2 physical books and 1 audiobook, and I actually allowed my patrons to vote which book they wanted me to listen to. So I put 3 books forward. First book, Jurassic Park by Michael Crichton. I've had this book on my TBR forever, and out of the 3 books I allowed them to vote for, I think this is probably the book I will love the most. Book 2 I allowed them to vote on was Cujo by Stephen King. Obviously, being a big Stephen King fan, I kind of feel like I need to read Cujo. And the 3rd book I allowed them to vote for was A Long Way to a Small Angry Planet by Becky Chambers. I think that's the title. If I'm being honest, it feels like it should be illegal to have such long titles for a book. But yeah, this book has also been on my TBR for ages. And out of those 3 books, surprisingly, A Long Way to a Small Angry Planet by Becky Chambers won by 1 single vote. People describe this book as a cozy sci-fi novel, and it's a standalone, and it's relatively short. So hopefully I will love it, but I'll give you my thoughts when I started it. But that still means that I have to start a physical book, and for me this was kinda a no-brainer, but again, it's a bit of a risk because it's also a sci-fi book, generally a genre I've struggled quite a lot with. But from everything I've heard, I should love what these 2 authors have written, which is The Mercy of Gods by James S.A. Corey. Now, I think most of you watching this will probably recognize this name because these guys have written the Expanse series, which I think is like an 8 or 9 book long series. And in August, the 1st book in a totally new trilogy is gonna come out. And yeah, I haven't read anything by James S.A. Corey, but I was so excited when Orbit sent me an arc. And this is gonna be a trilogy, so I don't have to commit to like 8 or 9 books. And from everything I read online, this should be totally independent of the Expanse. So yeah, if I'm just thinking about this objectively, it's probably not very smart of me picking 2 sci-fi books because I'm a huge fantasy nerd, but as they say, high risk, high reward. So let's get into reading. Oh, and I also forgot to mention that probably one of the most embarrassing things that I've ever done in a video happens later for around 10 minutes. It's worth sticking around for that because I'm just too lazy to re-record it. Okay, it's been around 2 days since I started this vlog, and I've learned 2 new things. Firstly, I learned how to convert from Celsius to Fahrenheit, and I know this is nothing book related, but you basically take the degrees of Celsius, times it by 9/5 plus 32. Americans, are you okay? Why are you using Fahrenheit? But the other thing I've learned is that I am unsure if I will love this book. I'm only 2 hours into it and it's around 15 or 16 hours, but my hope is really in this book. So without further ado, let's start The Mercy of Gods. Okay, so I read around 100 pages of this book, and this book is 420 pages, so around 25% already, and I'm actually really enjoying it. Firstly, the writing style is very accessible. One thing I often struggle with sci-fi is that it becomes overly technical or too much like sci-fi jargon, but this book, it does have sci-fi jargon, but it's not too much. It's a bit similar to like Andy Weir or Pierce Brown. Now, I love love the setting. So this is set in the far distant future, but it's not set on Earth. We're basically on a planet where humans have settled around 3,500 years ago, and we now follow this new human population on a distant planet. But the humans on this planet, they don't even remember how they arrived there, so they don't even know their origin story that they came from Earth. Their history only goes back around, you know, a couple thousand years, and they don't know where they came from. So they started a totally new civilization without having any thought of Earth and Earth history and so on. Oh, it's so fascinating. But then there is an alien invasion, and oh, it's so interesting, but I don't want to spoil anything because I'm sure lots of you will probably want to read this book. But yeah, really enjoying it so far. It is like the perfect sci-fi as of now, where you have some really interesting concepts, but what really drives this book forward is the characters. So yeah, really impressed so far, and I'm already now thinking that I should probably go back and read The Expanse after I finish this book. So let's hope this book stays as good. But let's also talk about The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet by Becky Chambers. So yes, I do kind of think that this fits within the cozy sci-fi genre. So I'm only around 15% into this book, and we basically follow this character called Rosemary, and we follow her as she's been able to get on this ship. She's had to go through many different challenges to even get to the position where she is, and she's now meeting all of these crazy weird characters. It definitely has this found family motley crew vibe, which I am enjoying. A lot of the characters are very colorful, they're very absurd and funny. And in a lot of ways, this does feel very wholesome. So it really feels like Becky Chambers, she had a vision for the story. And for the most part, it really feels like she has nailed that kind of vision. The thing that I just have to mention that I come back to again and again and again. And if you watch my channel, then you know that I don't really vibe that well with books that have lots of humor. Like, I don't mind humor, but when humor is a driving factor to make readers really engage and love the story, those kinds of books I usually don't feel that invested in. And as of now, humor is quite a big part of this novel. But I'm not hating the book. It just very much feels like a 3-star read at the moment. But hopefully I'll change my mind. Okay, so I definitely made a mistake making the overall aim of this challenge to increase my average star rating, because I just remembered that the third book is not a mystery. At time of recording this video, we're literally 2 days away from the end of July, which means that I have to start my next read for the Viking book club. Which, if you missed it in the last video, then here's the draw. Let's get into it. So the book we're going to be reading is number 10, A Shadow of What Was Lost by James Islington. And yes, that means once again that one of the books I have to read is a book that I didn't even choose, which is just ridiculous. But the good news is that this is actually a book I've been wanting to read for literally ages. The Shadow of What Was Lost by James Islington, the first book in the Lycanius trilogy. Now this is a chunker, so this is going to take me a while to read. Well, particularly one of the best booktubers out there and also a good friend of mine. He loves this trilogy, and he says that this book does time travel really well. And also these covers are just absolutely gorgeous. So while I didn't have a say in either this book or the Becky Chambers book, I'm actually really excited about this one, and I think I'll most likely give this one at least 4 stars and maybe even higher, which would increase my average star rating. But I won't be starting this book as of now, because I first need to finish The Mercy of Gods. Okay, I have finished the first book of this challenge, and it's actually going pretty well, because I kinda love this book. Okay, hold on, let's stop right here. Guys, so I'm currently editing the video. Basically, here's the scenario. I bought these new wireless microphones, and I was so excited to try them on, and I just popped it on my t-shirt. I'm not used to using these wireless microphones, and I just noticed that I probably recorded around 20 minutes of footage, basically half of my chest just hanging out. So basically, if anyone has really been wanting to see my hairy chest, then for around the next 10 minutes or so, you'll get that opportunity. And just for the fun of it, why don't we put a timer here that'll show everyone how long you can see my hairy chest. But I have a bit of an issue. The other book I'm reading currently, A Long Way to a Small Angry Planet, is not really vibing with me. But before I get into review of The Mercy of Gods, if you saw my last vlog, then you saw me drinking a disgusting plant-based drink. And some of the comments kinda roasted me for saying it was plant-based because coffee is always plant-based. And yes, I did intentionally use the word roasted because we're talking about coffee. I think that's funny. But I still have so much of that drink left, so let's make it again, shall we? Step number 1, ignore that my kitchen is a mess. Yes, I was too lazy to clean it up for this video. Step number 2, buy a protein powder, but not just any protein powder. Buy this disgusting pea protein vegan powder. Now before buying this, I did some Google research, and a lot of people said that this is the healthiest protein powder, but it comes at a cost. It is disgusting. So with the help of my wife, I've been able to find a way to make the drink a bit drinkable. Step number 3, turn on the kettle. Step number 4, or at least I think it's step number 4, grab water, it can be milk. Okay, and now the worst part. It's time to put some of this protein powder in the drink. Oh, the smell is just... Oh, well, let's just do this. Okay, but the drink is not finished yet, because we are adding some coffee to it. Now, my lovely wife, she often buys these gadgets that initially I'm just like, okay, I don't see how that'll be useful, like this thing here. But as almost always, she turns out to be totally correct. Because this thing is a game changer when you want to mix protein powder in a drink. Okay, and there we have it. I'll just add some more ice to it. All right, and here we have it. It actually looks quite nice, but it tastes like taking a bite of the earth or something. It's very like, I don't even know how to describe this, but it's not enjoyable. What I bought is protein powder. I'll have to try consume it. Oh, that's bad. Okay, let's talk about The Mercy of Gods by James S.A. Corey. Firstly, I think I'm probably initially going to give this book 4.5 stars, which should definitely increase my average star rating for this year, which I'm very excited for. Now, as I mentioned, the other book I'm currently reading, it'll probably decrease my average star rating, so we will see what happens at the end of this challenge. I'm really relying on The Shadow of What Was Lost to be brilliant, because at the moment, I don't really think the average star rating is going to be a massive change. But okay, let's talk about this book. Okay, so The Mercy of Gods is the first book in a new trilogy by James S.A. Corey, the same authors of The Expanse, and this was so good. Firstly, I haven't read any of The Expanse books, and I actually think this can be quite a good starting point because this is totally unrelated to the other series, and you don't have to commit to like 8 or 9 books. But the way I would describe this series is kinda like, it gave me like Red Rising and Hunger Games vibes, but then it has some really creepy aliens. Oh, it was so good. So we're basically set in a setting that is like far in the future. I think we're 3,500 years in the future, and humans have settled on a new planet. And basically humanity has forgotten how they got there. So that concept in of itself is very interesting, just the thought of humans settling somewhere else and then actually forgetting their origins. But then suddenly, quite early on in this book, an alien race arrives at this planet and it kidnaps the brightest humans on this planet and basically keeps them captives and says, you have to be useful, and they give them this task. And if the humans are not able to make themselves useful to this very weird alien race, then they will wipe out humanity. So we're kind of set in this Hunger Games / Red Rising setting where the stakes are unimaginably high and humans have to try and understand how to communicate and make themselves useful to these aliens. And what I loved the most about this book is that the aliens felt so alien. You know, one thing that I quite despise in a lot of like modern sci-fi is that the aliens are quite human-like. I mean, that just doesn't make any sense, right? If an alien race had evolved and developed on a totally different planet, we wouldn't expect them to act like humans. That just really annoys me, but that is not an issue in this book. The aliens, they feel weird, mysterious, hard to understand, and extremely powerful, and maybe super intelligent. We don't really know because we don't understand them. And then we have these humans locked into this existential dread / Hunger Games kind of story, and it was just so addictive. Like, I just had to turn on the pages because I just needed to know what was going to happen next. Now, that being said, I will admit that the characters I don't think are overly compelling, but I definitely enjoyed the protagonist, David, for example. And my biggest criticism of this novel is that while the aliens felt very alien, the humans felt very similar to humans in 2024, which again, that doesn't really make much sense. Just think about it. Humans lived on a different planet for 3,500 years, and they basically have similar institutions as we have. They have the same values. They think very similar to humans on Earth in 2024. So that's definitely my biggest criticism, but nonetheless, I found this novel just to be very captivating, interesting, and I just can't wait to read book 2 and 3. I'm definitely hooked. I'm definitely going to check out the other books. Okay, let's take another sip of this. Oh, I don't even know what it is. It's just so vile. Pea protein, would not recommend. Okay, but let's talk about A Long Way to a Small Anchor Planet. So I'm only around a third into this novel, and this novel was described to me as a cozy sci-fi, basically a sci-fi with quite a simple plot but very engaging characters. And you know what? I really enjoyed Legends of Latte. It's such a great novel, and I read that book at a perfect time. And with that in mind, thinking, oh, I actually enjoy Legends of Latte, I might love this one because I've heard so many great reviews, and it has so many reviews as well on Goodreads. Oh, look at this microphone. It's definitely struggling for its life here. What I'll say is that I don't think I was in the right mood when I picked up this novel. Now, it's very rare for me to crave a cozy read, and as I said, when I read Legends of Latte, I definitely wasn't in the mood for it, and I wasn't as excited for this novel, but I did put it forward as one of the 3 options for my patrons, because I thought I would probably still enjoy it, especially considering all the rave reviews. But yeah, if I should describe this novel, it's basically about this character Rosemary. She's on this strange spaceship as they're going from one mission to another mission. And while there is a plot in this novel, it's very, very character driven. Really, the main thing in the story is not really the plot, but it is the characters and how they engage. And it's just this exploration of found family in a quite a fun, cozy kind of way. And yeah, I don't really want to say that Becky Chambers is doing a bad job here, because she isn't really. It's just not that interesting, if I'm being absolutely honest. I don't know what it is with me, but I just feel like stories need to be either have high stakes or be a bit dark for me to absolutely love them, with some obvious exceptions. So if I should guess, then I think I'll probably end up giving this book 3 stars, but I still have a way to go. But if I end up giving it 3 stars, it means that my average star rating will go down to this. Again, it's early days, but I really need to love The Shadow of What Was Lost, because otherwise my wife is gonna control what I read for a whole week. Which again, it might not be the worst thing, but I have so many books I'm so excited for my TBR. But having finished The Mercy of Gods means that I can now start The Shadow of What Was Lost. And for some reason, I own so many editions of this book, it makes no sense. So a couple months ago, I found the self-published edition of this book. This is like super hard to find. Then I also have the broken binding edition of Shadow of What Was Lost, which they very, very kindly sent me like a year and a half ago. But then I also have the paperback edition, which I found in a charity shop around a year ago, and it was only £1, so I had to buy it. And then lastly, I also have this book on my Kindle. It was a sale around 2 years ago for £1, and I also bought it for £1. But that means I own 4 editions of this book, which makes no sense. You just never get used to it. But that means that I can finally start The Shadow of What Was Lost today. So this book is around 700 pages and I can't wait for it. At the time of recording this video, we're going to have our monthly Zoom book club discussion, which usually takes place on the first Saturday of the next month. And we're going to be discussing the book we read last month, The Parable of the Sower. And I just can't wait. Genuinely hanging out with my patrons, discussing a book we all read, and then just having like loads of fun. It has become one of my favorite parts of the moments. So if you want to join this small community I built, I will leave a link in the description down below where you can join us. But without further ado, let's get into reading. Okay, and I also feel like I need to give credit where credit is due. It's because the reason why I started getting interested in vlogging is because, firstly, Hayley Pham, I love her vlogs, but it was really, really great to see another male booktuber just smashing doing vlogs. And I'm talking about no one else than Ian Gubelli. Look at that face. And yes, he joined me on the annual booktube collab, which in case if you haven't seen that video yet, then I'll leave a link up here. Also, it's a new day and a new pea protein drink. Don't do it, guys, don't do it. Now, a lot of people say that this book is very similar to The Wheel of Time. Oops. And yes, I finished The Shadow of What Was Lost, and I actually really enjoyed it. It was very different from what I expected, because being like a modern fantasy, I expected it to feel very, very different, and it does have like accessible modern writing style, but this definitely felt very classic, but with that like modern twist to it. And when you think about the comparison to The Wheel of Time, yes, I definitely agree. There's like a farm boy to hero kind of situation in this one. We have like tenets in this novel, we have odes in The Wheel of Time, and also just the overall plot of the bad guy is about to break loose and we have to prepare is definitely there. While The Wheel of Time has like the dream world, this also has something very similar. There's like a mentor figure. There were a lot of things that felt very, very similar between these two novels. And yeah, as I said, in a lot of ways, this felt like quite classic. I was very surprised. Now, a lot of people say that the Lacanius trilogy is very confusing and you have to like read them back to back to be able to remember all the details. But now, obviously, I only read the first novel, but I don't really agree with that this novel is overly confusing. But maybe that happens in book 2 and 3, where apparently more like time traveling elements is introduced to the series. But yeah, overall, I enjoyed this novel. The more I read it, the more I actually enjoyed it. I wouldn't say it's one of my new favorites. I don't even know what it is, but there's just something that lacked to make it absolutely like a new favorite of mine. But I was very compelled by it and I'll definitely continue the series. So I think overall, I would probably give this one 4 stars, which means that my average star rating has increased. The bad news is that the more I think about The Mercy of Gods, I think I need to give that one probably 4 stars. Initially, I gave The Mercy of Gods, I think 4.5 stars. So I'll give both Mercy of the Gods and The Shadow of What Was Lost 4 stars. Which now means that if my math is correct, if I give The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet 3 stars or lower, my average star rating will decrease and I will officially have lost this challenge and I'll allow my wife to choose the books I read for a whole week. And just a sneak peek, I am not enjoying that book at all. I have around 30 pages to go. So the plan is to go to the park because I'm currently dog walking for this lady at church. I'll go to the park with the dog. His name is Boris. I'll finish the book and then I'll give you my thoughts on that book and then we will wrap up the challenge. Let's go grab Boris, shall we? Okay, so I'm just about to pick up Boris, and this dog, he loves walks and he'll probably be way too excited to see me, so let's see. And here we have Boris. He's overly excited to get to the park as always. Look how cute he is. So I'm officially at the park and my plan is to finish A Long Way to a Small Angry Planet. So I actually went to the library and borrowed this book because I just couldn't do the audio. I'm really struggling with this book. So hopefully being able to read the last like 30 pages is going to help me to get a bit more immersed. But yeah, the plan is to read this book and also just throw this ball to Boris because he just loves playing. Boris, Boris, come here. Let's see if he likes this one. All right, let's start reading. All right, I want to talk about A Long Way to a Small Angry Planet, but can you hear this dog? Okay, so I just moved because that dog's breathing, like Boris's breathing is so loud. So I finally finished A Long Way to a Small Angry Planet. And before giving my thoughts, like I'm almost inclined to be more positive because I think if I give this book less than 3 stars, then I will officially have lost the challenge and my wife can choose the books I read for a whole week. But I just have to be honest. Obviously, authenticity is important. And if I'm being absolutely honest, this book might have been the book that I've enjoyed the least this year. This was just not my jam. Now this challenge started well because the first 2 books I really enjoyed, and I think overall The Shadow of What Was Lost and The Mercy of Gods were probably 4-star reads, but this was just not my jam. I think I realized already after 50 pages that I just wouldn't really enjoy this book because the weird thing about like cozy fantasy and cozy sci-fi is that you have to be very invested into the characters because the stakes are so low, which was certainly the case in this novel, and I just didn't find the characters interesting. This book was just too wholesome. I think that was my issue, and also like the sci-fi setting was alright, it just didn't really interest me. And I'm really trying to understand, why did I enjoy Legends and Latte and Bookshops and Bone Dust by Charles Baldry, but I almost didn't enjoy a single page of this one. To be fair, there were some sections in this novel where there's like some questions about life, biology and stuff which I found very interesting, and some great character moments, but on the whole, this was a massive slog. At the beginning of this video, I felt like I was getting out of this potential reading slump, but now I just really feel like I'm in a reading slump at the moment and I need to find a very good read. So it's a bit unfortunate that I'm finishing on, what is he doing? So it's a bit unfortunate that I'm actually finishing this vlog on a bad note and I've actually lost the challenge, but it might be a good thing that I'll actually just allow my wife to choose the books I read, because I have a tendency to read a lot of fantasy and occasionally sci-fi, and maybe the thing I need to get out of my reading slump is to read books that are outside my comfort zone. What do you think, Boris? Should I read something else in sci-fi and fantasy? I'll take that as a yes. Now the only thing is that I can't really do that reading challenge just yet because I'm going to the Faroe Islands soon and I have a lot of videos planned, but I make this promise that before the end of this year I will definitely do the reading challenge where I allow my wife to choose the books I read for a whole week. So I'm not really sure which book I'll pick up yet, but it is time for me to choose the book for next month's book club. So without further ado, let's do that. Okay. And the book we're going to be reading is number 2, The Captain by Will White. Okay, very interesting. Okay, so that's it. I lost the challenge, but I'm actually low-key looking forward to letting my wife choose the books I'm going to be reading for a week. And also, if you want to read The Captain with us, then check out the pages down below. And it also means that you'll get your name in your video, just like these all amazing people that literally allow me to get 2 to 3 videos professionally edited a month. Because yes, I basically spend all my Patreon income at the moment on video editing so I can do more videos at a high quality. So if you want to join this small community and you want to support me and get your names in the video and meet lots of people that love fantasy, then I'll leave a link in the description down below for my Patreon. Thank you so much for watching.